dear students, I am Dr. Shikha Pandey. I am going to teach you about the structure and function of ecosystem. This is the module 1, environment and ecosystem. In the previous lecture, we have a study about the classification of ecosystem and the types of ecosystem. So in this video lecture, I am going to cover the structure and function of ecosystem. So in this video lecture, we're going to cover the component of ecosystem, abiotic component and biotic components, autotroph, heterotrophs, decomposers, function of ecosystem, and their conclusion on the slide. So let's start the lecture with the first is the structure of ecosystem and components of ecosystem. All these components will make an ecosystem, so we call it as the structure and components of ecosystem. First thing is about ecosystem. The main ecosystem is made up of by two main factor. First is abiotic factor and second is biotic factor. Abiotic factor is the non-living, and biotic factor is the living factor, living things on the earth. So abiotic factor is again divided into many factors like light, temperature, water, and soil and minerals. And biotic components is on the broad way. They have divided into two types. First is autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs and heterotrophs. We will discuss about these things in the coming slide. And this again, the heterotroph is divided into two parts. First is decomposer and consumer. Consumer is again divided into three parts: primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. So all these components all together, they will form ecosystem, form structure of ecosystem. So now come to the next slide. This is about abiotic component. Abiotic component is nothing. It is the non-living matter in an ecosystem like mineral, gases, liquids, and chemicals. These are referred to as non-biotic or abiotic factor. It is like a not alive and non-living factor that affect living organism. Environmental factors such habitats or weather such as temperature, cloud cover, rain, snow, hurricane, etc. are abiotic factors. So abiotic factor are non-living components of the ecosystem. This is wind, sunlight, soil, water, atmosphere, temperature. All together they will make an abiotic factors. Sunlight is the most important thing in the abiotic factor because green plants use sunlight to make their food and everything. Now come to the biotic components. Biotic components are the different living organism. See the word living organism that constitute the biotic components of the ecosystem. And biotic components is divided into three stages. That is, first is producer, second is consumer, third is decomposer. Producer means that will produce energy. Consumer means that will consume energy. Decomposer means that will decompose all this decaying material and convert some useful substances from the dead body of any organism. So biotic components refers to large life forms such as trees or mammals, small life form like insects and algae, and microscopic life form also like bacteria. These all together make a biotic component of an ecosystems like this. Tree or mammals, these are the larger life form. And smaller life form is an insect and microscopic life form like bacteria. So all these organisms all together they will come under the biotic component of an ecosystem. And biotic, as the name suggests, it is related to life or living factors. Plant, animal, fungi, bacteria, all are the living factors, and it is of three types: producer, consumer, and decomposer. Producer that will produce energy, consumer will consume energy, and decomposer will decompose the energy. Now come to the point, or autotrophs. Autotrophs, as the name suggests, auto means self and trophs means food. Those organisms that uses inorganic chemicals to produce their own food. Autotrophs are those organisms that will make their own food by the use of sunlight. So green plants prepare their food by themselves by making use of carbon dioxide present in the air and water in the presence of sunlight through the process is called as photosynthesis. So in this picture you can show that green picture, green plants use light energy from the sunlight, and they will make their own food and store them in the plant parts. So carbon dioxide, they'll use carbon dioxide and water, and that will form carbohydrate, and that will produce oxygen and water, as a green plant produce oxygen. So by the process of using sunlight and making their own food, this process is called as photosynthesis. Photo means light, photo means light, and synthesis means to make, to synthesize, to make or to synthesize. So green plants use sunlight to make their own food. So this process is called as photosynthesis. Now come to the heterotropic components of the ecosystem. Ecosystem is a heterotroph, means those organisms that depend on other for their nourishment directly or indirectly, and they depend upon the autotrophs. Heterotrophs are depends upon the autotrophs for their nourishment. Heterotrophs depends upon the autotrophs for their foods, for their every requirements, and these heterotrophs are divided into four categories: herbivores, carnivores, tertiary carnivores, second tertiary consumers or tertiary carnivores, and then omnivores. And in this picture you can see that first level is about producer, second is about primary consumer, and third is about secondary consumer, and then tertiary consumer is there. So first is, and this picture is in the form of triangle, because everywhere you can see that some energy is lost in the form of heat. So that's why this picture is comes on like this triangle. So from one trophic level to another trophic level, these trophic level will make an ecosystem, and from one trophic level to another trophic level, 10% of energy lost in the form of heat. That's why this picture is come like this pyramid kind of thing, and we will discuss about pyramid of energy in the coming lecture in details about this structure of this trophic structure. So let's discuss about what are consumers, who are decomposers, and who are primary consumers, who are secondary consumer. First is the herbivores, like primary consumer. Herbivores are those animals that feed directly on the living plants, like rabbit, like deer. In the first picture you can see that the rabbit and deer, they are the primary consumer, like they will directly feed on the green plants, they will eat only green plants. So they are called as primary consumer, they will consume primarily through the green plants. And after that, secondary consumer is there. Secondary consumer are the carnivores, we call them as carnivores. These carnivores that feed on the herbivores like those animals that will eat herbs only. So carnivores are those animals that will eat those organisms that will eat herbs. Example of carnivores are snake, bird, fox. So they will eat those. They will eat deer. They will eat rabbit. They will eat snake. No, not snake. They will eat sparrow. So they are called as secondary consumer. Like a snake will eat sparrow, snake. So they are called as secondary consumer. Now comes to the tertiary consumer. Tertiary consumer or tertiary carnivores, these are those organisms that will feed on the primary and secondary consumer. Example, lion and tigers. Tertiary consumers are those that will feed on the secondary consumer as well as on primary consumer. Like tiger can eat deer and wolf also. So they are called as tertiary consumer. And after that, one more point is there, that they are omnivores. And omnivores are those they consume on both plant and animals, like human being or birds. Like human being can eat can be a vegetarian and non-vegetarian also. So they are comes under omnivores. And this is all about the trophic level in the of an ecosystem. Now come to the next slide. They are called as decomposer. Decomposer is are called, the role of decomposer in any ecosystem is to recycle nutrient once an organism has dye and nutrients in waste. Decomposer attacks on the dead producer animals and animal waste, making them simple stable compound. This compound can then be used as nutrient by the producer. See, these are the example of decompose like worm, mushroom, insects, and bacteria. They will what they are doing. They will attack on a dead organism, and they will decompose useful material from their body and decay all these waste from whatever is there. So sometimes they are called as a, they will free up the spaces available on the environment. So these are very important part of the ecosystem, because the decomposer will decompose all the waste material and provide all the useful material again in the environment, in the form of a nutrient or in the form of a stable compound. So in this picture you can see that all the producer consumer is there, and then after consumer decomposer is there. Decomposers are bacteria and fungus. Their role is to decompose all the stable, all the compound present in the dead body of an organism, and then they will provide again in the environment in the form of abiotic forms. And all these are again used by the producer plant, and they will come again in the ecosystem. So they, all these processes are interrelated. And as we have discussed about the things now, like energy cannot be waste from the ecosystem. They will recycle it from by their tropic structure. So this is, in this picture it was clear that from producer they will consume by consumer, and from consumer they will, it will after their death or decay, they will decompose by bacteria and fungus, and they will again make them use into the environment in the form of abiotic chemicals, and then again it was used by the plants. And all these process, arrow is there, so you'll, it is very easily you can understand this, that this process is interconnected with each other. Now this is the, in the slide we are going to discuss about the function of the ecosystem. Ecosystem is a complex dynamic system. They perform certain functions. As we have already seen that it is a very complex dynamic system. Dynamic means very fast system, and they are interdependent and interrelated with each other. So the main function they are performing is the energy flow in the ecosystem. Like this, energy should be flow from one trophic level to another trophic level, from primary producer to consumer to decomposer, so that in this way ecosystem is connected. These are called as, and so this is called as energy flow. And we are going to discuss about this function in the coming lectures in detail. Nutrient cycling, ecological succession, and homeostasis nature. Homeostasis nature is the feedback control mechanism. Like ecosystem has a self-regulatory mechanism. They will regulate by their own. They will make all these things which is destructed, and they will make there by their own. So these are called as feedback control mechanism. Ecosystem has the power to use their by their own. In this picture we can see that solar energy is there. Plant they will use fight photosynthesis. Then herbivores is connected to detritivores, and all the non-living factors are there. Atmosphere, in the atmosphere oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water, and both all, and unidirectional arrow is there, means they are connected with each other. So this picture will clarify the all the process of ecosystem, what the function of ecosystem is doing. Nutrient recycling is there. We will discuss about this nutrient cycling in the coming lectures also. And energy flow, in the next lecture I will teach you about the function of ecosystem in details, and all these functions like energy flow and nutrient cycle, pyramid of energy, ecological succession, homeostasis, and feedback control mechanism of an ecosystem. Now, conclusion of today's lecture. Today's lecture, we are going to understand that we are going to conclude, or we have an idea about that the ecosystem is a dynamic complex of plant, animal, and microorganism community, and their non-living environment interacting as a functional unit. Ecosystem is a network of interaction between abiotic and biotic component of the systems. Is a nothing but it is a network of interaction between abiotic and biotic component. Nutrient moves from the ecosystem in the biogeochemical science cycle, like in gaseous cycle and sedimentary cycle. Gaseous cycle, we can study about the nitrogen cycle, oxygen cycle, and in sedimentary cycle, we will study about the phosphorus and sulfur cycle. And the consumer are herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, or decomposer. Decomposer recycle nutrient back to the producer by decomposing the waste and remains of the other organism. That is the main role of decomposer. And decomposer is, we can also call them as a they are like a free up space. They will remove the space, whatever waste is there present in the in the ecosystem. Like, so the decomposers are very important for an ecosystem. They will recycle the nutrient back to the producer and decompose all the waste present in the ecosystem. Thank you for this for listening this lecture.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.